Alright everyone, today we start off with Bidenomic news, and as usual, it ain't pretty. That's probably not a surprise to you. Link in the description archived, of course. The US diesel supply is now at a 15-year low. It hasn't been this low since 2008. That's number one. And number two, there's only 25 days worth of diesel fuel actually in the United States at the moment to actually be used for things. And that amount has been falling fairly steadily for some time now, and so it may run out. we may end up with a very limited diesel supply, which would, of course, send prices skyrocketing. If that happens, and of course we hope that it doesn't, considering the time of year, it would be particularly difficult for New Englanders. So if you're voting in a New England state, diesel's rather important up there. Or if you work in any industry that uses it, so shipping, certainly, transportation, farming would be a big one. You may want to keep that in mind when you go to the ballot box in the United States. Now, of course, that fuel supply is shorter in other parts of the world too. Like apparently there are a couple of tankers with like 1 million barrels of it that have been redirected to the United States from Europe to help make up some of the lost supply. But this is a big problem, and there's a tie-in here that probably should be considered. Now, gasoline in the sense of you gassing up your car and diesel fuel aren't exactly the same. But right now we've got a steward of the United States who has been steadily draining the fuel supply out of military-grade strategic reserves in order to prop up artificially low gas prices and diesel for the U.S. market because of political concerns over the midterms. Is it wise to do that when you already have a fuel supply that is considerably smaller than the recent long-term average? I would argue no. There's another problem when we say that it's the same amount that was in it in 2008. So it's at a 15-year low. What's different between now and 2008? The U.S. economy is larger. It requires more fuel input. Although the amount of, per capita, like as a ratio, fossil fuel is getting less used. Other energy sources are becoming more common. Dump trucks tend not to run on solar panels. I'm just putting it out there. Also, the population is a lot higher. You have more homes that have been built. You have more things that require fuel of various kinds. You have more transportation going on. The economy is larger than it was in 2008. Although recently it's been shrinking. Thanks, Joe. Real cool on that end, too. That could be a real problem as we head into winter. We've got a fuel crisis that's hitting gasoline in the refined sense, oil in general certainly, diesel fuel, natural gas. You've got the problem of China looming over Taiwan and throttling the lithium market. You know, a lot of solar is made in China. Aluminum production. Germany shut down some of its production. What do you think goes into those fancy-ass windmills that you see all over the Dutch coast? It's a ticking time bomb. This is a massive disaster waiting to happen. It's been predicated on several things. Lockdowns, that's a big problem. You created massive bottlenecking in the world's supply of goods, not just things related to energy production. You destroyed a lot of small businesses and infrastructure with lockdownerism that wasn't helpful and it wasn't necessary. Secondly, of course, political intrigue. Yeah, I know the big one would be the war in Ukraine, but that's not the only flashpoint in the world. Again, you've got Taiwan, you've got what's happening in Korea. A large part of this is predicated on the leadership of multiple Western nations being pathetic, not knowing how to deal with diplomacy, trade disputes, etc. China is flexing its muscles right now for a reason. The idea that Biden's CHIPS Act, which is a pig in a poke fucking handout to a bunch of corporations, is actually going to bring a bunch of manufacturing back to the United States. No, not really. Although it's finally become worthy for the United States to bother mining minerals that they can get much cheaper in China because this price is going up anyway. Only because you sweeten the deal. Half those mines will close within 10 years, by the way. Just to be clear, they're going to be operating on taxpayer subsidies. Well, those won't last forever, just to be clear. I think a Biden winter is coming. I think that a lot of people are going to be very uncomfortable and upset. You're already going to have logistic issues anyway in parts of the country where there are road closures due to blizzards and shit. We get that anyway. For those of us who are Vermonters, well, it's not a big problem. Oh, there's 5 feet of snow on the road? Well, I guess I have to stay home for a couple of days. Oh, the power went out? Well, I guess we'll be burning some of the trees out from the backyard. Get the saw, Jimmy. It might be a problem for others. People maybe not so hardy that weren't raised in a fucking Siberian climate. By the way, not a big fan of winter. Yeah, if I had my way, I guess I'd be in Majorca or something like that right now. I'd be down in the Canary Islands or maybe in the Amazon rainforest. That sounds comfy. And you don't have to shower because the humidity is so high, it's like you're constantly in a sauna, so you save time. It'd be more efficient, until the humidity destroys your computer, I guess. The U.S. diesel supply being at this level is so bad that even Joe Biden himself is saying it's unacceptable. I know that I helped cause this problem through economic mismanagement, the throttling of the U.S. energy sector, etc., etc., and not knowing what the hell that I'm doing when I appoint Pete Buttigieg as transport secretary, that is involved in the movement of fuel and other things, and he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Basically, he likes model train sets and other trains, and that's why I chose him. IDPOL. It's sort of like the carpet bagging of FEMA by George W. Bush to similar potentially disastrous effect. 25 days worth of diesel. So you can keep the economy going for less than a month, assuming that further shipping problems don't happen and that there's no differential between supply and demand. 25 days is how long you can make sure that the diesel supply is there. That's not enough. It should be more than that. Just like the U.S. Strategic Oil Reserve shouldn't have been drained to a 40-year low or a 30-year low. I can't remember which one it's at. I think since the 1980s. Again, the economy is much larger. There are many more people, many more vehicles that gas is needed for. It's not meant to be used as a piggy bank. We see, basically, we've got the parasite presidency when you think about it. All of the good times that had been built up by prior admins, yeah, even to an extent the energy boom at the end of Obama when he stands out of the way of fracking, yeah, we'll even give him credit for that. All of that has now been pissed away in the wake of COVID, in the wake of lockdownerism, by Beijing Biden's feckless administration. All of the good times have been, let's say Trump wins in 24, which is what I want. Let's say no obstruction, supermajority MAGA, House, Senate, courts, everything else. Everything's going fine. We got a bunch of economic whiz kids running everything. The economy goddamn soars like a Tesla, like a rocket sent up by Elon Musk to deliver satellite services. Even then, and let's make it dynastic, so then you get another administration with 2 terms. You got 12 years of nonstop good economic data. It still would barely compensate for all of the pissing away of U.S. productivity and wealth that we've seen over the last 2 years. It would barely make a difference. It would probably break even. We'd be back where we were before the pandemic began, and then we'd be making up for lost time after that. It's a generational problem, I think, at this point. The economic damage is so severe, and the educational damage. Of course, Jake Tapper bringing that up the other day after spending 2 years thinking that people like me that were actually having that discussion over lockdown's impact on kids' cognition and behavior, that we were conspiracy theorists and we should be shut up by big tech and by banks and stuff. All of a sudden, they want to have a national conversation about it. I guess hindsight is better than 2020 in CNN's case. These are big problems. It's going to be hitting us hard for years and years to come, possibly decades. So let's hope that we get competent leadership in D.C. Preferably leadership that'll stand out of the way of private marketplaces more. I know that might be too much to hope for in many situations, but it'd be nice. A man can dream, can he? That's about all. Peace out.